Bring in Jim Hanson, who is chief editor of Middle East Forum and served in the U.S. Army Special Forces. Jim, great to have you here this morning. Some ask, where was this strike weeks ago? Others say this increases the chances of the United States being dragged into a larger conflict. Where do you lie, Jim?
Both of those things are true, but this was a vital and necessary step. And I'm glad we actually involved our allies from the UK and others in this. Freedom of navigation and, protection of global trade is one of the main functions of the U.S. Navy. So I think we needed to do it. I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that the Houthis are basically a franchise terror operation of the Iranian regime. They're 100% owned and operated by them, as are the militias who've been attacking us in Iraq and Syria, as are Hezbollah and Hamas. So at some point, we're going to have to deal with the spider at the center of this web. That's the real danger.
Okay, so a senior White House administration official says, while we fully expect this action to diminish the Houthis' capabilities, we would not be surprised to see some sort of response. So what do you think about that? What can we expect realistically to happen next?
I don't think there's any chance the Houthis and the other Iranian proxies are going to lower their operations just because we took this first attack. I think it's necessary, and I think it was good, and I think we damaged some of their abilities to do it. They'll be back again, and we need to be ready. We also need to be prepared for an escalation from Iran in other areas. They may tell Hezbollah and other actors to turn up the heat on either Israel or potentially U.S. Targets around the world.
Jim, this launch presumably was orchestrated from a hospital room. Lloyd Austin is not sitting there in the middle of the Pentagon. Obviously, we've reported extensively on his health conditions. Can you think of a time in our history where something like that has happened, where somebody's been in sort of an incapacitated capacity and authorized a strike like this? And, what are the ramifications for that going forward?
I assume Lloyd Austin is cognizant of his duties, except that he forgot them when he failed to inform his chain of command that he was in the intensive care unit. That's dereliction of duty. It's a lie of omission, and he needs to be fired. And if he's not fired, the Republicans in the House ought to start impeachment hearings against him, because he let the entire country down and put us all at risk by refusing to tell even his deputy that he was incapable of doing his job for a number of days early this year.
Okay, so this strike targeted the Houthis in Yemen, but let's talk about another Iranian-backed terror group, and that's Hezbollah out of Lebanon. Very concerning report out of Politico says U.S. officials assess that there is a rising risk Lebanese Hezbollah militants will strike Americans in the Middle East and even potentially hit inside the United States. These officials say the chance for an assault on U.S. soil is growing. These officials declined to give any specifics about the kind of attacks Hezbollah might be considering, but they did say that this particular terror group has capabilities that other terror groups don't. All of this, Jim, made even more concerning when you consider our open southern border. So what do you think about this?
Anyone of military age who has wanted to walk across our southern border has been able to do so. And the Biden administration, instead of dealing with that as a threat, has welcomed them, given them resources, and moved them throughout the country. So essentially, we've been bringing everyone in with no idea who they are. And now I'm certain that terror groups, including Hezbollah, have used that to place some of their operatives in the United States. They've been running crime syndicate-type operations previously in the United States. We've caught them doing that. So there's no chance that they didn't take advantage of this. It's a massive failure by the Biden administration, because the United States inside our borders is just one collection of giant soft targets. We can't protect all of it. And if they decide to take advantage of it, they can, and American citizens will die.
Let me just be clear. I think last night's strike was important. But that said, did last night's strike against the Houthis increase the chance of the Houthis or Hezbollah, as Carly mentioned, increasing that chance of an attack on our homeland, do you think?
100%. It has increased that possibility, and we need to act accordingly. That doesn't mean we should fail to do what we need to do as the only global superpower. It's up to us to make sure global trade continues. But we also need to make sure that we're not simply allowing the United States to be infiltrated by anyone with a pair of tennis shoes and a bad attitude.
It's called walking and chewing gum at the same time, and it has life and death consequences. Hopefully this administration can follow through with it. Jim Hanson, thank you for your time.